Months of silence, then a message, what it really means. The most profound silence often resides within the individual who believed they held the advantage. They have chosen to withdraw, haven't they? Without any forewarning or farewell, they disappeared as if they were a magician indifferent to the applause of their audience. One moment, they were sharing laughter over your jokes and sending messages as if they were utterly captivated by your presence. And then, just like that, there's nothing. You observe their social media updates, you notice their online activity, yet your name has seemingly vanished from their notifications. This absence can play tricks on your mind. It feels deeply personal, it feels frigid, and it certainly feels like a form of rejection. However, I want to share a crucial insight that many people overlook. When they choose to go quiet, that's when you begin to gain strength. Picture this scenario, everyone. You find yourself in a dense forest, and someone is fleeing from you. You pursue them, and as they increase their speed, so do you. But then, unexpectedly, you come to a halt. You remain motionless, and something remarkable occurs. As they begin to slow their pace, a sense of curiosity takes hold. They glance back, pondering the reasons behind your sudden halt, and questioning whether they have lost their influence over your feelings. This phenomenon, my friends, illustrates the intriguing psychology of silence. It turns the tables entirely. When you choose to stop responding, you position yourself as the one who holds the reins. There's no need for shouting or pleading, all it takes is a deliberate withdrawal. And believe me, they are acutely aware of this shift. Many individuals mistakenly perceive silence as a sign of defeat. They assume that if someone ceases communication, it signifies that you have lost their interest or, even worse, diminished your own worth. This notion is one of the greatest misconceptions you could encounter. The reality is that silence does not equate to weakness, rather, it serves as a powerful tool. It acts as an unexpected tempest, catching them off guard. It creates an emotional void that can lead to a collapse of their ego. While they anticipated that you would pursue them, you opted for a moment of stillness. And that very pause is what drives them to distraction. They expected you to plead for their attention. They believed you would crumble. They assumed your sense of self-worth hinged on their opinions. But you are not here to be manipulated like a puppet on strings. You are here to take control of your mind. And their silence is your opportunity to grow stronger. Do you recall the words of Marcus Aurelius? He said that the best form of revenge is to not become like the person who wronged you. This means avoiding petty games, refraining from bitter responses, and instead focusing on building your strength, fostering personal growth, and maintaining a healthy distance. While they are preoccupied with wondering why you haven't fallen apart, you are out there becoming unbreakable. I understand that it hurts. It's perplexing. You seek answers. You desire closure. But here's a little secret, closure is not something they are obligated to give you. Peace, however, is something you owe to yourself. So, instead of chasing after their words, pursue your own purpose. Instead of dwelling on the past, focus on shaping your future. Transform their silence into a signal for your own growth, their distance into a direction for your journey, and their games into opportunities for your personal development. This is the moment when everything transforms. It's the point at which you can take your pain and turn it into a source of strength. This is when you stop fixating on your phone and begin to focus on your own growth. It's the time to stop waiting for someone else to reach out and start investing in yourself. Remember, when they choose to be silent, it doesn't signify the end, rather, it marks the beginning of the most empowered version of yourself. So, I encourage you to take a moment right now and share this in the comments. Silence made me stronger. Repeat it to yourself and let the world see your resilience. If you're eager to delve deeper into this topic, I invite you to stay with me. In this video, we won't merely endure their silence, we will learn to master it. Together, let's change the narrative. First and foremost, it's important to understand that while silence may feel like rejection, it is actually a moment of revelation. Experiencing rejection doesn't imply that you weren't worthy, it simply indicates that the other person was unable to recognize your true value. Initially, silence can feel like a harsh blow, a sudden emptiness where their attention once was. One day, they were fully engaged, replying to your messages, sharing laughs, keeping up with your social media updates. Then, without warning, everything stopped. No responses, no explanations, just an unsettling quiet that makes you question everything. The hardest part isn't the silence itself, it's the unanswered questions that linger in your mind. Did I make a mistake? Was I not good enough? Did they lose interest? It's easy to fall into a cycle of self-blame, overanalyzing every interaction and shrinking yourself to fit what you think they might want. But here's the truth, silence isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to reveal what's real. Think of it like a glass of murky water. When it's shaken, the particles swirl, obscuring clarity. But when it sits still, the sediment settles, and the water becomes transparent. Silence works the same way. It strips away the noise, showing you who truly values your presence and who was only there for convenience. When someone withdraws without explanation, it's not the end of something meaningful, it's the start of understanding. You see who's genuinely committed, who's emotionally mature enough to communicate, and who was merely acting a role until it no longer served them. This clarity, though painful at first, is a gift, one that guides you toward relationships built on authenticity, not performance. But let's address what might be on your mind right now. What if they're just swamped with other tasks? What if they do get back to you? What if you're overreacting to their silence? That fear and that lingering hope, it's completely normal. We're all wired to seek connection. We crave resolution and answers. But sometimes, not getting a reply is the answer. Most people won't admit this, but I will. Sometimes, the silence is more powerful than 1,000 falsehoods. Because someone who truly cares doesn't just disappear. Someone who values you wouldn't leave you hanging. Silence isn't random, it's a message. And instead of viewing it as a personal failure, you need to start seeing it as valuable information. Seneca once said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And that couldn't be more accurate here. You're imagining all the things you might have done wrong. You're replaying every message, rereading every conversation like it's a puzzle you need to solve. But remember, sometimes the best answers are found in the spaces between the words. What if I were to tell you that the puzzle you're trying to solve isn't even yours to fix? Let's be straightforward here. If someone's silence leads you to doubt your own worth, it indicates that you have given them the keys to your emotional well-being. This is where things start to go awry. At this point, they are no longer just a person who has stopped communicating with you, they have become someone who controls your inner peace. And let me emphasize this, no one, absolutely no one, should have that level of influence over your mental state. This is where it becomes challenging because emerging from this silence requires you to engage in some uncomfortable actions. It calls for you to cease reaching out, to stop over-explaining your feelings, to halt the waiting game, and instead, to confront the fear of being alone with your own thoughts. It is in this solitude that true power is cultivated. It does not lie in the clamor of someone else's approval, but rather in the stillness of recognizing your own self-worth. Consider this perspective: what if the silence you're experiencing isn't a form of punishment, but rather a means of protection? What if this space between you and that person is a sign from the universe indicating that they are not meant to accompany you on your journey ahead? What if this moment is actually a redirection for you? When you are too close to someone, it becomes difficult to see yourself clearly. However, silence creates a necessary distance, and that distance allows for clearer vision. This moment you're facing is not a breakdown, it is a breakaway. It is a break from feelings of neediness, from desperation, from the cycle of overthinking, and from waiting on individuals who were never truly equipped to cherish your heart in the first place. Now that you've been left in the dark, it's time to take back control. Start by breaking free from the constant need to check your phone, waiting for a response that may never come. Remember, your self-worth isn't defined by someone else's silence. Instead, focus on rebuilding yourself. Get back to your fitness routine, dust off that project you put on hold, and reconnect with people who value and appreciate you. Most importantly, recall the person you were before this experience made you doubt yourself. Their silence isn't a prison, it's a catalyst for growth. This is your opportunity to rise above the noise, to build a strong foundation in solitude. While they're seeking validation from others, you're constructing a throne, brick by brick. And when you emerge from this silence, you won't just be healed, you'll radiate confidence. They'll feel the impact of your absence, not through your messages or social media likes, but through the unspoken language of self-assurance. So, take a moment to declare your independence, write it down, and make it your mantra: their silence was my signal to rise. Shout it from the rooftops. Write it with conviction. Reveal your true self. Show everyone. Demonstrate to the world that their disappearing act doesn't make you a victim. Instead, you're the hero of your own resurgence. This is how strength is revitalized. In the tranquility, in the break, in the calm where many would be filled with anxiety. But you thrive. And don't go anywhere, because coming up next, we'll discuss the trap they lay when they fall silent and why not responding is your ultimate retribution. Stick with me. Second point, they anticipate your reaction. That's precisely why you shouldn't. The instant you react, you surrender your power. The moment you remain calm, you reclaim it all. They're not just maintaining silence. They're observing. Watching to see your next move. Will you be overwhelmed? Will you send multiple messages? Are you going to pursue them as if they are essential for your very existence? That is precisely what they are counting on. Silence is not merely the absence of sound, it is a calculated tactic, a snare cloaked in ambiguity. The instant you fall into this trap, they emerge victorious. They anticipate that you will give in, that your emotions will overflow uncontrollably. This is the reason they vanish without a word. They are eager to gauge the extent of their influence over you. While they engage in a strategic game of chess, you may find yourself caught up in a simpler game of emotional checkers. Each time you react out of fear, you unwittingly place your most powerful piece, your queen, directly into their trap. But consider this: what if you chose not to react at all? Picture yourself as a fortress, strong, towering, and firmly rooted. However, every time you respond to their silence, you are essentially opening your gates. You allow them to enter and rearrange your inner peace as if it were furniture in a space they have no right to occupy. You relinquish control over your heart, your thoughts, and your self-worth. This cycle must come to an end. Let me emphasize this, my friends: your reactions are the very sustenance they thrive on. It's akin to emotional bait. They cast out their silence and wait to see if you will take the bait. Have you ever found yourself questioning your actions, wondering if you did something to upset them? Perhaps you consider sending a sad emoji, hoping it will evoke a response and some empathy. It's natural to want validation and to seek an explanation for their sudden distance. But here's the thing: they want to see your vulnerability without revealing any of their own. They want to know if they still have power over you. However, what if you were to give them the opposite? What if you offered them nothing? Absence speaks volumes, and it can be a powerful tool. By not reacting, you deny them the satisfaction of seeing your distress. You don't flinch, you don't pursue, and you certainly don't try to force a connection that is clearly one-sided. Instead, you respond with stoic silence, a response that is both unexpected and unsettling for them. They are used to seeing desperation, but you offer distance. This confuses them, as they are no longer sure how to categorize your behavior. You're not the one sending good morning texts, even when they've ignored you. You're not the one sitting with an unfinished message, hoping they'll initiate a conversation. You're not begging for attention from someone who seems uninterested. You take a step back, you pause, and in doing so, you assert your own power and independence. Remember, Sometimes the best response is no response at all. By taking a deliberate pause, you actually reclaim everything you thought you'd lost. I can almost hear your next question: what if they walk away because I don't react? Here's the truth: if your silence alone is enough to drive them off, you never really held on to them in the first place. If the connection crumbles the instant you stop chasing, then it wasn't genuine love, it was a mirage you fed at the expense of your own self-esteem. This is where stoicism often gets misunderstood. It's not about turning into an emotionless statue, it's about achieving crystal-clear awareness. It means feeling every emotion fully, yet choosing your response with intention instead of impulse. Picture a sturdy tree in the middle of a storm, its roots hold strong even when the wind howls. That's you standing firm when someone withdraws. Marcus Aurelius didn't advise us to suppress our feelings, he urged us to master them. And in this moment, you're doing exactly that. You're resisting the urge to fire off a message, to mend fences immediately, or to justify your hurt. Because deep down, they already understand why you're wounded, they just lack the will to change course. Let that fact sink in. Allow this realization to awaken something within you: you deserve far more than someone who wields silence like a weapon. You're worthy of authentic connections that don't vanish once the lights go down or the conversation falls into shadow. Remember, true respect and compassion aren't fragile, they're steadfast, even when the world around you tries to unbalance them. To achieve true fulfillment, it's essential to break free from the cycle of constant validation and pursuit of external validation. This means letting go of the need to constantly prove oneself to others. Instead, focus on becoming the version of yourself that doesn't feel the need to chase validation in the first place. Consider the example of lions. These majestic creatures exude confidence and presence, unfazed by the presence of smaller animals. They don't feel the need to prove their worth or react to every perceived threat. Their silence commands respect, and their energy is palpable. This is the kind of energy you can adopt, not out of ego or a desire for external validation, but out of a deep understanding of your own worth and value. You don't need to react to control, you simply need to stop letting external factors control you. The next time you hear that familiar voice in your head suggesting you should reach out one more time, stop and take a deep breath. Remind yourself of who you're becoming and the kind of person you want to be. This isn't about ego or a need for external validation, it's about honor, dignity, and emotional discipline. You don't need to prove your worth to someone who has already decided to test it. Let them wonder why you stopped responding, and let them question why you didn't fall apart this time. Let them feel the silence they created, but now with the added tension of your indifference wrapped around it. This is when everything shifts. This is when the hunter realizes they've become the prey. By adopting this mindset, you'll be able to break free from the cycle of constant validation and pursue a path of true fulfillment and self-discovery. When you choose not to react, you're essentially making them confront the consequences of their actions. You're forcing them to grapple with the echo chamber of their own silence. If they don't feel anything, that's perfectly fine. You can then move on without any lingering emotions. However, if they do feel it, and let me tell you, they will, they'll try to reclaim what they thought they could easily let go of. But by that time, you'll have evolved. You'll have grown stronger. You'll have moved forward because you didn't break under pressure. You didn't chase after them. Instead, you paused. And in that pause, you rose above the situation. So, here's your challenge right now. Type this in the comments: I don't react, I rise. Let the world see your strength. Let yourself feel the power of your silence. And let them feel the shift without ever uttering a word. Because what's coming next is the part where your silence holds even more power. It's the foundation of greatness. Stick with me, because what comes next is where you start transforming their silence into fuel for your personal growth. Here's the third point: let go of their silence, and instead, connect with your own inner strength. The less you engage with unnecessary drama, the more serenity you'll find in your daily life. Even more importantly, the less you let their silent treatment affect you, the more empowered you become. Let's get really honest here, something most people hesitate to admit. The pain you feel from someone's silence exists primarily because you've given it meaning. You might interpret their quietness as a reflection of your value, your attractiveness, or your significance. But consider this: what if their silence only takes on meaning if you allow it to? On its own, it means nothing about your worth unless you decide it does. Remember, their silence doesn't define who you are, how you choose to respond to it does. Unfortunately, many people let their sense of self be dictated by others' reactions. If someone pays attention, they begin to feel valued; if someone ignores them, they start to doubt themselves. This mindset is a trap. It's like handing your peace of mind to someone else and hoping that they cherish it as much as you do. The key is to unfasten yourself, not from the person, but from the significance you've attached to their actions. That's where real change happens, and that's where you reclaim your power. By doing this, you protect your emotional well-being and gain the freedom to shape your own identity, independent of others' behavior or opinions. When you recognize that their silence isn't a reflection of you, but rather a sign they're struggling with something, it's important to pause and consider why they're quiet. Perhaps they're lost in thought, trying to process something complicated, or simply overwhelmed by life's demands. Maybe they're testing your patience, hoping to see how you react to their inconsistency. Or maybe they're just tired of feeling ignored, having grown used to people drifting away without consequence. But this time, you're not playing by those rules. You've had enough of being manipulated by someone's unpredictable behavior. You're done letting every missed message feel like a seismic shift in your confidence. You're done giving them your emotional strength without asking for anything in return. You don't owe them a response, you owe yourself the space to breathe. Imagine your energy as a bank account. Every time you second-guess their silence, you're withdrawing from your own reserves. Each unnecessary text you send is a withdrawal from your budget. Every replay of conversations, chasing meaning from their absence, is an emotional overdraft. What are they doing while you drain yourself? They're living, posting, laughing, and ignoring you because they're focused on their own world. Why are you bankrupting yourself for someone who's not even contributing? Detachment is the art of saying, "I saw that. I recognize that feeling, but I refuse to let it control me." This isn't about being cold or unfeeling, it's about gaining clarity. It's not surrendering, it's embracing maturity. Let's be honest, though, this is incredibly difficult. You invested care, built a connection, and experienced something genuine. Now it feels like all that effort vanished into emptiness, leaving you stranded. You find yourself constantly anticipating that notification, that message, that sign saying, "I'm still with you." But what happens if that connection never reappears? What if you wait so long that you sacrifice your own opportunities to evolve? That's when you shift your energy inward. That's when detachment starts taking root, not as an act of retaliation, but as a gesture of self-respect, a commitment to emotional accountability. It's recognizing that no one else holds the keys to your inner peace but you. Let this truth from Epictetus guide you: our pain doesn't come from what actually happens, but from the stories we tell ourselves about those events. Their silence is just an event, it's your interpretation of it that creates the weight. Think of it like this: if you keep waiting for someone else to light your candle, you'll stay in the dark far longer than necessary. Sometimes, lighting your own flame is the kindest act of all. The meaning you assign to situations is what shapes your judgment, and it is here that your suffering can either begin or cease. So, let's take a moment to reframe the narrative. Instead of thinking, "They are not responding because I am not enough," consider this: their lack of response is merely a reflection of their own character, not a measure of your worth. Rather than feeling compelled to take action to win them back, remind yourself that what is truly meant for you will never require you to chase after it. When feelings of abandonment arise, affirm to yourself, "I am prioritizing my own needs, even if they do not." This is how you transition from a place of attachment to one of self-empowerment. You move from seeking validation externally to exuding it from within. Instead of feeling adrift in their absence, you become anchored in your own presence. Each time they overlook you and you resist the urge to pursue them, you cultivate inner strength. Every moment you feel the temptation to break the silence but choose to remain calm instead, you enhance your self-discipline. With every instance you redirect your attention back to your aspirations, your well-being, and your happiness, you create positive momentum. Before long, their silence fades into mere background noise. Their absence loses its significance, and the influence they once held over you diminishes. At this point, something remarkable occurs: they begin to take notice. They feel the growing distance and perceive the change in dynamics. Because silence only resonates when it reverberates. When your silence becomes steady, confident, and unshakable, it begins to resonate loudly. Others might expect you to break down, to crawl back in defeat, or to revert to old patterns of weakness. They anticipate you folding under pressure, just as you might have done before. But this time, you're choosing a different path. Instead of reacting outwardly, you're stepping back emotionally, detaching yourself from chaos and noise. You're rising above the noise, shifting your focus inward, and redirecting your energy back to yourself. And believe me, those around you can sense this shift. So, don't be afraid of silence. Embrace it. Let it challenge you, help you grow, and reveal your true strength. Because anyone can shout loudly to get attention, but only those with real power can remain silent and still be impactful. Say it aloud now, or type it in the comments: I detach to rise. Make this your new mantra. Consider this your new shield. This is the moment when you transition from waiting to be selected to actively choosing yourself. What lies ahead is not merely a change in perspective, it represents a complete lifestyle transformation. The more you learn to let go, the more you will draw positive experiences and people towards you. When you stop pursuing things desperately, you become a magnet for what you truly desire. By concentrating on your own growth and well-being, you will find that the opinions of those who have distanced themselves from you become increasingly irrelevant. Stay with me, as we are about to harness this energy to create something extraordinary, an empowered version of yourself that is so focused, so self-assured, and so formidable that others will struggle to connect with you, even if they wish to. Now, let's discuss the concept of reframing the void. Silence is not an absence, it is brimming with insights. If you take a moment to be still and listen, you will discover that silence is filled with answers. Many individuals dread silence, perceiving it as a form of rejection, punishment, or abandonment. It can feel akin to being isolated in a dark room where your own thoughts amplify, drowning out any external voices. However, what many fail to realize is that silence acts as a reflective surface. It reveals the distractions that noise has always kept you from recognizing. When someone becomes silent, it's not just that they leave an empty space behind, they actually leave a message within that silence, a message that reveals exactly what you needed to understand. Owing to this subtle communication, many people completely miss the important cues. They quickly rush in to break the silence by texting, pleading, offering explanations, or even begging for the quietness to stop. Deep down, they fear the hidden meanings behind that silence. However, you are not here to run away from this, you are here to truly listen. Picture yourself in a secluded cave where the only sounds are your own breathing, your heartbeat, and the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. Initially, the silence might feel overwhelming, almost maddening. But if you remain present, your senses begin to sharpen. You start observing details more clearly and hearing subtle sounds that you would otherwise overlook. This is the unique power of silence: it removes the superficial layer, laying bare the deeper truths. Consequently, when someone you love falls silent, the quiet communicates everything that their spoken words might be too hesitant to reveal. It's a gradual awakening, isn't it? You begin to truly see the imbalance in the relationship, the sheer volume of energy you were dedicating compared to what you received in return. It dawns on you how frequently you were the driving force, initiating conversations, agonizing over every detail, rationalizing their aloofness. You were constantly making excuses, perhaps telling yourself they were just busy or stressed. Then, a shift happens. You consciously choose to stop justifying their silence, and instead, start deciphering its underlying message. Because silence, contrary to popular belief, almost always serves a purpose. Sometimes, it's a test of sorts, a subconscious probe to gauge your investment. Other times, it's a harsh but valuable lesson, forcing you to confront uncomfortable truths about the dynamic. And in some cases, it's actually a form of protection, for you. When someone withdraws into silence, they essentially drop the act, the carefully constructed persona. They unveil their genuine selves, the person they are when they feel no obligation to impress you or fulfill a need. That is the version you absolutely must pay attention to. That's the unvarnished truth, stripped bare of pretense. You've likely been captivated by their charisma, seduced by their charming words, and blinded by the potential you saw in the relationship. But silence? Silence is brutally, unflinchingly honest. Imagine it as a spotlight, illuminating what was always there, hidden in plain sight. And here's the really startling revelation: the truth, in its raw and unadulterated form, was always present. You simply couldn't discern it through the cacophony of your own hope, your yearning for the relationship to work. Many people will try to convince you that the silence signifies they're overwhelmed, indecisive, or simply working things out. And while that might be the case for a tiny minority of individuals, the vast majority of the time, silence is communication. It's a potent message, conveying everything you need to understand without a single spoken word. Think of it as a signpost, clearly indicating the direction you need to take. Don't dismiss or ignore that silent communication. It's offering you invaluable insight into the reality of the situation, an insight you might have been actively avoiding. It's important to recognize that silence should not be viewed as a neutral state. When someone truly cares about you, they do not retreat into silence. Instead, they actively seek to connect with you. They make an effort to clarify any misunderstandings and consistently show up in your life. On the other hand, those who thrive on your confusion tend to disappear. They do not disappear to reflect or think, rather, they watch from a distance. They observe how much you are willing to endure and whether they still have control over your emotions. This behavior is not indicative of love, it is a form of manipulation and control. So, dear friends, this is where we begin to shift our perspective. This is the moment when you should stop fearing the silence and start interpreting it. Rather than viewing it as an empty void, consider it a message. A message that communicates: this individual is not the person you wished they would be. What you are experiencing is not love, it is merely a performance. You have been giving far more than you have been receiving in this relationship. You were meant to move beyond this situation because sometimes the universe gently nudges you when you refuse to pay attention. If you continue to overlook these signs, the universe will stop whispering and will begin to take things away from you. That is the true meaning behind their silence. Consider this: a removal, a redirection, a reset. It's not here to penalize you, rather, it's a wake-up call. You're not destined to chase shadows. Your purpose lies in healing, growing, and realizing that silence isn't an emptiness but a volume you've never dared to amplify before. It whispers to you about the areas where you've neglected yourself, tolerated less, and shrunk to fit someone else's comfort zone. Now, it's time to expand, to evolve. Silence is your invitation to rebuild, to cease pouring your energy into those who only deplete you, to stop justifying yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, and to cease waiting for another's voice when you can trust your own. Here's the honest truth: silence doesn't break you, it constructs you. Those who embrace it, reflect on it, and learn from it emerge stronger, more assertive, and more certain. And when they re-enter the world, they're not pleading to be heard, they're radiating their own unique voice. They get to decide when to engage. That's control. Allow their voice to fade. Let their presence dissolve. Observe how your composed stillness communicates more powerfully than any reactive words ever would. While they're scrambling to interpret your tranquility, you'll be quietly building what they never anticipated, a reality where they're no longer the main character. Take a moment right now to type these words as your declaration: in silence, I found perspective. Write it with conviction, as if the mental static has cleared and you've rediscovered your inner voice. Because this phase of your journey boils down to 3 conscious choices: prioritizing understanding over chaos, valuing inner peace over external validation, selecting your well-being over fair-weather companions who vanished during your storms. Stay with me, because what comes next is crucial. We're about to explore mindset practices that forge true emotional resilience. Soon, when quiet moments arrive, you won't dread them. You'll recognize them as allies. Step 5. Develop psychological fortitude when people vanish. True strength isn't born from dodging hardships, but from navigating storms while maintaining your core identity. Like a tree that grows sturdier roots through seasonal winds, your resilience develops through weathering challenges without compromising your fundamental values. Consider this: every time you sit with discomfort instead of chasing distractions, you're doing the mental weightlifting that builds unbreakable resolve. Let's clarify something important, my friends. People will come and go. They might disappear right in the middle of a conversation, leaving you hanging. They could promise to stay in touch, only to vanish without a trace. Sometimes, they change their behavior without any explanation, leaving you puzzled and without closure. The most frustrating part is that these departures often catch you off guard. One moment, they are present in your life, and the next, there's nothing but silence, cold, empty, and bewildering. This is the reality of modern relationships, and it can feel like a battlefield where you find yourself standing alone. If you don't prepare your mind, truly prepare it, you may find yourself repeatedly affected by each instance of someone disappearing from your life. Let's be honest, the hurt doesn't stem solely from their absence. It's the lack of explanation that stings the most. You're left with a cacophony of questions echoing in your mind. You might wonder, what did I do wrong? Was I not enough for them? Did I push them away, or perhaps I didn't try hard enough? Your mind turns into a courtroom where you are unjustly put on trial for offenses you never committed. This is where the real pain begins, not in their silence, but in the way you start to criticize and blame yourself. However, what if I told you that the moment they choose to disappear doesn't have to signify the end of everything? It can be a turning point, a chance for growth and self-discovery. Life throws us into moments that feel like a rite of passage, a personal challenge that puts everything you've built within your own thoughts to the test. Imagine this: when the people around you suddenly go quiet, life doesn't hit the pause button. The sun continues its journey across the sky, your lungs keep drawing in air, and the dreams you hold dear remain just as important. But here's the catch: if you don't root yourself in this reality, you might find yourself stuck, living as though you're waiting for someone to return and complete a conversation they've already walked away from. This is the moment when true self-development kicks in. It's not about lifting weights in the gym or facing an opponent on a physical battlefield. No, the real arena lies within the space between your ears, your mind. This is where the battle happens, and you have a choice: either you take charge and train your mind, or you let it take the reins and lead you into a cycle of suffering. So, what does this mental training actually look like in practice? Let's break it down. Each morning, as you open your eyes to a new day, you start by setting an intention. You tell yourself, I don't chase after things or people, I make deliberate choices. This simple statement is a reminder that you're in control of your actions, not a puppet pulled by external forces. Then, as you move through your day, you reinforce another key principle: I don't just react impulsively, I respond thoughtfully. Think of it like this: reacting is like a knee-jerk reflex, while responding is like taking a deep breath and choosing your next step wisely. This mindset requires discipline, the kind of discipline that belongs to someone who understands a crucial truth: peace isn't something the world hands you on a silver platter. Instead, it's something you earn, day by day, through the way you handle life's messiness, uncertainty, and, most importantly, silence. Now, let's talk about silence, because it's not just the absence of noise, it's a powerful test of your emotional strength. Can you sit in that quiet space without feeling the urge to fill it or escape it? For example, imagine you send a message to someone important to you, and hours pass without a reply. Can you handle that silence without letting it shake your sense of self? Can you be overlooked or ignored and still hold firm in your belief that your worth isn't tied to someone else's attention? These are the questions that matter, because the world has a way of breaking people who haven't prepared for moments of emotional disconnection. Too often, we're taught to define ourselves by what others think of us, by the likes, the compliments, the validation. But true strength comes from learning to stand tall, even when the feedback stops, even when the attention fades, and even when the praise dries up. You didn't come here seeking approval or validation. Your purpose is deeper, it's about alignment. This isn't about winning people over or being universally liked, it's about cultivating an unshakable core. Achieving that requires consistent effort, daily mental conditioning, like training a muscle. You must actively rewire the instinctive thought that whispers, if they're silent, it means I don't matter. That's a trap. Instead, flip the script. Teach your mind to respond differently. Their silence speaks volumes, but it's about them, not me. This mental shift is the reframe. This is the discipline that sets apart those who crumble under uncertainty from those who rise above it. And let's be clear, this isn't about suppressing your emotions or pretending you're unaffected. It's not about wearing a mask of false strength. It's about building a mindset so grounded in truth that fleeting moments of silence or indifference can't disturb your lasting inner peace. To illustrate, picture a sturdy tree weathering a storm. The winds may howl, the branches may sway, but the roots hold firm. The storm doesn't define the tree, it merely tests its resilience. That's the kind of unshakable foundation you're striving for. The branches of a tree may sway and bend, and its leaves might be carried away by the wind. However, the roots remain steadfast and secure. This is akin to what mental training provides for you. It serves as your anchor, keeping you grounded. As a result, when people come and go from your life, you remain intact and resilient. You stand strong and confident. It's natural to feel the impulse to reach out to those who have left. You might find yourself gazing at your phone, wishing for a message from them. You may struggle against the urge to explain your feelings, to mend the situation, or to seek closure. This reaction is typical of an untrained mind, one that is impulsive, emotional, and yearning for answers. In contrast, a trained mind takes a moment to pause and breathe. It reassures itself with the thought, I will not forsake my own well-being simply because they have chosen to disengage from the conversation. Cultivating this mindset requires deliberate practice. Each day, you engage in meditation, write in a journal, and remind yourself of what truly matters. Instead of obsessively checking their online activity, you focus on your own personal growth and achievements. You dedicate your energy to pursuing your own goals. You find your way back to your physical self. You remain fully present in the moment. The instant you reconnect with your inner self is the moment their silence begins to lose its hold on you. It's discipline that renders silence powerless. When your mind is well trained, you become resilient and unbreakable. When they fade away, you emerge stronger. You use their silence as a catalyst to intensify your focus. You hit the gym with renewed vigor. You build your business with unparalleled clarity. You walk with unshakable confidence because you no longer wait for someone else to validate you. You've already made the choice to validate yourself. You want to understand true power? It's not about seeking revenge. It's not about getting even. It's about waking up one morning and realizing that you haven't thought about them in weeks. It's about understanding that your inner peace didn't come from their presence. It came from your own discipline. And that's what I wish for you. A mind so strong that it doesn't beg for attention. A heart so grounded that it doesn't chase after fleeting moments. Imagine a life where your mind is so disciplined that it doesn't crave validation from others. Imagine a heart so grounded that it doesn't chase after temporary pleasures. This is the kind of strength and peace that comes from within, and it's what I hope you achieve. For example, think about a time when you felt truly at peace. It wasn't because someone else was there to make you feel that way. It was because you had cultivated that peace within yourself through discipline and self-awareness. That's the kind of strength and peace that I want for you. Imagine having a mind that remains steadfast and focused, even in the midst of chaos. A mind that doesn't get lost in the distractions of games or everyday life. This is the power of mental clarity, and it's something that can be developed with practice and dedication. To begin, let's create a mental mantra that will serve as a reminder of our commitment to focus and clarity. Take a moment to type the following phrase in the comments: "My mind is my fortress." Say it with conviction, with fire in your belly. Say it with a sense of determination, knowing that this phrase will become your new armor. As you repeat this mantra, remember that silence is not something to be feared. Instead, it's an opportunity for growth and self-reflection. When you train your mind to stay quiet, you'll find that it becomes a sharpening ground for your thoughts and emotions. You'll be able to cut through the noise and distractions, and focus on what truly matters. The longer we stay quiet, the more control we gain over our thoughts and emotions. This is a powerful concept, and one that's often misunderstood. When someone goes silent on us, our initial instinct is to panic. We feel like the walls are closing in, and our chest tightens with anxiety. We want to reach out, explain ourselves, and fix the disconnection before it gets worse. But here's the thing: silence is not a sign of weakness or abandonment. It's often a sign of strength and self-awareness. When someone is silent, it means they're taking the time to reflect on their thoughts and emotions. They're not reacting impulsively, but instead, they're choosing to respond thoughtfully. There's a famous saying that goes like this: "Never interrupt your enemy when they are making a mistake." This phrase is often used in the context of conflict and competition, but it can also be applied to our personal lives. When someone is struggling or making mistakes, it's often a sign of weakness, not strength. By staying silent and allowing them to work through their issues, we're giving them the space they need to grow and learn. So, stick with me as we continue on this journey of mental clarity and focus. Your power is just getting started, and I'm excited to see the progress you'll make. Remember, the longer you stay quiet, the more control you gain. And with that control comes the power to shape your thoughts, emotions, and actions. The longer you choose to hold your silence, the more the balance of power tilts in your direction. Many people think of silence as a sign of passivity or weakness, an indication that you've conceded or lost your nerve. But in reality, silence can be an incredibly calculated strategy. The most skilled and formidable players, whether in chess or in life, often rely on quietude to tip the scales in their favor, especially when their opponent doesn't even realize they're already at a disadvantage. Silence, when used intentionally, is never about defeat, it's about control. Keeping quiet creates a sort of tension, an invisible, emotional pressure that settles into the space between you and the other person. This tension is powerful. It lingers in the back of their mind, making them wonder and second-guess. They may pretend not to notice your absence or your lack of response. They might act as if everything is business as usual. But deep down, the lack of communication catches their attention. Consider this: you stop answering their messages or watching their stories online. They may try to brush it off, but eventually, the gap you leave begins to weigh on them. You're not reaching out for explanations, not double texting, not seeking their approval. Suddenly, their own confidence is tested, they start to feel the sting of your absence. In this way, silence becomes your most powerful move, radiating strength rather than surrender, and compelling the other side to reconsider their assumptions. They are the ones who find themselves with questions. This is precisely how the balance of power begins to shift. Let's be honest, prior to this period of silence, they held the reins. They commanded your attention, absorbed your energy, and occupied your thoughts. However, now they are confronted with the emptiness they have created, and it is proving to be less comfortable than they had anticipated. Consider silence as akin to gravity. It exerts a slow yet unyielding pull. Initially, they may not perceive its effects, but as time progresses, it begins to weigh heavily on them. Questions begin to take shape in their minds. Why haven't I heard from them? Are they upset with me? Have they moved on to someone else? Are they engaging with another person? Have they simply stopped caring? The most ironic aspect of this situation is that these are the very same questions that once plagued you. Now, they are the ones wrestling with these thoughts. This is the power of silence. It turns the tables. They anticipated a reaction from you. So, you chose not to reach out. Now, imagine them in the space you once occupied in their life, contemplating your absence. They're likely analyzing everything, second-guessing past interactions, and wondering why you're not there. That's the power you unintentionally wield, control. But I understand the hesitation. Some of you are probably wondering, what if my silence just makes them forget about me? What if they simply move on and never return? Let me dispel that fear right now. If your silence causes someone to genuinely forget you, then their connection to you wasn't as deep or meaningful as you thought. Their presence in your life was more superficial than substantial. Think of it like this: if physical distance makes someone disappear from your life, they were probably already mentally and emotionally detaching themselves anyway. You aren't really losing anything of true value. Instead, you're revealing the true nature of the connection. You're exposing their genuine intentions. And if they do eventually come back into your life, the landscape will have shifted. You'll be in a significantly stronger position. You'll have experienced the profound effect of self-control. You'll have discovered the inner strength that comes from your stillness, from not constantly needing external validation. You'll understand what it feels like to be complete without their presence. And when they inevitably come knocking on your door, whether it's a virtual message or a physical visit, the power dynamic will have fundamentally changed. The imbalance that might have existed before will be significantly reduced, perhaps even eliminated. That's the incredible reward for practicing patience, embracing stillness, and exercising restraint. People who become anxious and reactive during periods of silence often lose sight of themselves and their own worth. But those who maintain composure and inner peace, they gain leverage, both in the situation and in their own self-perception. The longer you remain silent, the more pressure builds, not just on them to understand your silence, but also within you. And that pressure, that internal tension, is what ultimately creates transformation. It forces you to confront your own needs and desires, to reevaluate your priorities, and to emerge stronger and more self-assured on the other side. It's like a diamond being formed under immense pressure. The result is something beautiful and resilient. Embracing silence can be a powerful transformative experience. It compels you to confront your thoughts and become the source of your own comfort. Through this process, you undergo a profound evolution. You become more grounded, more focused, and more impactful, as you no longer rely on external validation. You transition from someone who needs to be heard to someone whose words are eagerly anticipated. Your silence can even become a fascination for others, much like the effect of walking away from a situation where your time and energy were undervalued. Initially, others might not notice your absence, assuming you will return. However, as time passes, they begin to realize the significance of your presence. This realization comes at a cost, often understood only after you've stopped being available. You no longer seek to be noticed or validated when you remember your true worth. So, the question arises, how long can you remain quiet and hold on to your power without feeling the need to make a point? The longer you maintain this silence, the more control you gain over yourself. This control isn't about manipulating others, it's about mastering your own self. It's about understanding that true strength lies in self-discipline and self-awareness. By staying quiet and focused on your own growth, you can unlock a deeper level of personal power and influence. This is what true confidence looks like. This is genuine strength. The reality is that many individuals have never truly experienced it. They navigate through life in a reactive manner, constantly seeking attention and yearning for validation. However, you find yourself here now because you have decided to move beyond that existence. You are prepared to harness your energy rather than allow it to seep away. Let others be puzzled by your actions. Allow them to remain in their own silence, assuming that you simply haven't reached out yet. The longer you choose to remain silent, the more they will come to understand that you are perfectly fine without their engagement. When someone begins to feel your absence more profoundly than they ever valued your presence, that is when the dynamics shift dramatically. So, here's your empowering action for today: refrain from speaking. Do not reply. Do not show any signs of hesitation. Let your personal growth resonate so powerfully that your silence becomes overwhelmingly noticeable. And I encourage you to express this in the comments right now: silence is my superpower. Own that statement with confidence, as if it were a powerful weapon you carry with you at all times. Demonstrate to others, to yourself, and to the world that you are unafraid of embracing quietude. You are in the process of constructing something significant. You are opting for self-control and mastering the tempest within. In the next phase, we will delve even deeper. You believe they are unruffled now? Just wait and observe what transpires when your silence begins to shatter their ego. Remain with me. At number 7, you will witness their ego disintegrate as you ascend in silence. Your silence will impart lessons that your presence never could. Let us be candid, my friends. There are individuals who do not appreciate your worth when you are directly in front of them. They grow complacent, assuming you will always be accessible, always respond, regardless of how they treat you, coldly, distantly, dismissively. They expect you to persist, and as long as you do, they remain unchanged. Their ego remains unflinching, their pride inflated because you continue to nourish it. However, when you choose to become quiet, when you refrain from explaining yourself, stop pursuing others, and cease reacting, that's when the situation becomes truly intriguing. Silence is not merely the absence of sound, it embodies a significant presence. It compels others to confront their feelings in your absence. If you've ever been curious about someone's true feelings towards you, try stepping back for a while. Observe the outcomes. Notice who makes an effort to reach out to you, who becomes aware of your absence, and who starts to feel anxious. While your spoken words may have gone unnoticed, your silence is something they cannot overlook. Initially, they might act as if your absence doesn't affect them. They may scroll through their feeds as if nothing has changed, post updates that suggest they are thriving, share laughter in their stories, drop subtle hints, or even attempt to draw you back in with attention-seeking posts. Yet, beneath this facade lies a growing pressure, an intensity that was absent before. For the first time, you are no longer playing your role in their little game of control. You've stepped off the stage, leaving their ego without an audience. This is when the cracks in their composure start to appear. Your silence acts as a mirror, reflecting their behavior back to them. They begin to reconsider their words, their actions, what they failed to do, and most crucially, why you have chosen not to respond. This stillness can be likened to psychological warfare, unsettling the very foundations of anyone who has been accustomed to manipulating your reactions. They begin to notice subtle changes in their behavior. They frequently refresh their direct messages, hoping to see your name pop up. They keep an eye on who has viewed their stories. They might even share a thought-provoking quote, just to gauge your reaction. Yet, despite their efforts, there is nothing from you, only silence. This silence resonates loudly, conveying the message, I am no longer the person I once was. It is within the tension between their pride and your tranquility that a significant transformation occurs. You have shifted from being the one who reacts to being the one who remains composed. You are now the calm presence, the individual who opts for serenity instead of chaos, and who chooses detachment over unnecessary drama. When someone who previously sought to manipulate you through emotional tactics realizes they can no longer exert control, their sense of self begins to deteriorate. Now, let's focus on you for a moment. This situation is not solely about their unraveling, it is equally about your ascent. While they are left pondering why their puppet has ceased to perform, you are busy constructing a realm of self-worth. You are utilizing this period of silence to reconnect with your inner self, to cultivate your mind, to energize your body, and to enhance your concentration. Rather than spiraling into despair, you are in the process of sculpting your future. You are transforming confusion into clarity, heartbreak into a driving force, and detachment into purposeful direction. Because while they were engaged in their games, you began to play for something far more significant, your legacy. Let me share a raw truth with you, their silence wasn't a display of strength, it was a test of yours. They waited to see if you'd plead, compromise your dignity, or chase after the relationship. But you did the unexpected, you walked away. That's where their carefully crafted script fell apart. When they grasp that they've lost their grip on your reactions, their pride doesn't just deflate, it collapses inward, leaving them to confront a haunting question: what if my control was never real to begin with? That's the quiet strength you cultivate by refusing to engage. Let me say this clearly, few things dismantle a fragile ego faster than your unwavering calm. When they can't provoke anger, guilt, or desperation, their internal turmoil becomes their own battle. True power isn't always loud, often, it's the choice to leave without a word. You've likely heard the saying, the person who cares less holds the power. Let's refine that idea, it's not about caring less, it's about needing less. You can cherish someone deeply yet choose to release them, not out of spite, but because your self-worth and inner peace are non-negotiable. For example, imagine loving someone but choosing to walk away from a one-sided connection. Why? Because your tranquility isn't a bargaining chip. You can hold love in your heart while honoring your boundaries. That's the balance of emotional maturity, caring without clinging, loving without losing yourself. When your quietness stems from a deep sense of self-worth, rather than from a place of resentment, it carries a profound impact that others cannot easily quantify or evade. What typically unfolds afterward is quite interesting. Often, those who initially caused the silence will return, though not necessarily with an apology or a newfound understanding. Instead, they might reach out through subtle means, such as sending a casual, "hey" text, sharing a funny meme, or making a seemingly innocent check-in. These small gestures are often a test to gauge whether they still hold any influence over you. However, by this point, you have transformed. You no longer crave external validation. You aren't anxiously awaiting their response or trying to decipher their silence as some unsolvable puzzle. You've come to realize the power of your presence and the strength that comes from not reacting. You've experienced the liberating feeling of maintaining emotional control. Once you've tasted this kind of empowerment, there's no going back to the old patterns of seeking approval. So, here's a simple action I'd like you to take right now. Leave a comment that says, "I rise in silence." Let this be your personal statement, a declaration of your newfound strength. Allow others to feel the weight of your resolve, and let the world witness your transformation. Keep this in mind, the quieter your ascent, the more powerful your presence becomes. When you grow and change, those who are driven by ego won't be able to handle your transformation. Stick with me because we're about to dive into something profound, something conclusive. It's the moment you understand that you weren't designed to chase after others, you were meant to make choices. And when you choose yourself over the silence of others, that's when you truly succeed. Remember this, you weren't meant to chase, you were meant to choose. Don't go after people who aren't interested. Be true to yourself, pursue your passions, and work diligently. The right people, the genuine ones, will naturally gravitate towards you. Let's clear away the distractions, friends. You were never meant to chase after people who vanish from your life. You weren't supposed to beg for love, prove your worth, or diminish yourself for a response. That was never your purpose. But somewhere along the way, society might have convinced you that silence was a test, that when others stop communicating, you need to speak louder, and when they pull away, you need to try harder. But that's not the way it should be. Instead, focus on your own journey and let the right people find you. But that's not strength, that's desperation. You don't pursue what leads you away from tranquility, instead, you select what harmonizes with it. The reality is, the more you chase, the more you forfeit. You lose your self-respect, your sense of direction, your vitality, and most importantly, your true self. However, the moment you cease chasing and begin choosing, everything transforms. You opt for serenity over achievement. You choose clarity over bewilderment. You decide to step away from manipulative situations and step into your own greatness. And here's the thing, that silence they gave you was actually a gift. It unveiled everything you needed to know. It showed you where respect wasn't reciprocated, where connections weren't genuine, and where your energy was being depleted rather than appreciated. Now, you don't just accept that truth, you rise above it. So, here's the ultimate truth. You weren't created to chase after love, you were created to embody love. You weren't made to respond to attention, you were made to radiate presence. You weren't meant to wait for someone to recognize your worth. From the moment you took your first step, it was clear that walking came naturally to you, as though it had always been ingrained in your being. Now, take a moment to type this into the comments, I choose me, always. Let those words be your ultimate declaration. Allow them to resonate more powerfully than any silence ever could. If these words struck a chord deep within you, if you sensed a transformation taking place, then it's time to act like those who exude strength and purpose do. It's not enough to simply think about change, you need to embody it. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, and become part of a community that's quietly rising above limitations while moving forward with dignity and self-respect. Reaching the next phase of your journey doesn't depend on making a lot of noise, it's about finding clarity, summoning courage, and making intentional choices. You weren't designed to endlessly chase after things outside yourself. Instead, you were created to make deliberate decisions, and today, the most important decision you can make is to prioritize yourself. So go ahead, choose you.